Welcome to another episode of Fully Blooming. This week, I'm very excited to have Tara Ghosh on my podcast, and we only met just over a week ago, very briefly, and I just heard very quickly what she does, and I thought, absolutely perfect person. I need to have her on my podcast. So I'll let her do the introducing. So if you'd like to just introduce yourself a little bit about what you do, and also maybe a little bit about how you got into what you do as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much for having me here today. So yes, my name is Tara Ghosh. I am a certified women's hormone coach, a period and digital wellness educator. And I'm really passionate about helping women understand their bodies so they can really thrive in every part of their life. And, what got me to be talking about hormones and vulvas and periods with so much passion is because, well, frankly, most of my colleagues who are in this period space had some sort of period journey through, really from teenagehood onwards. And I'm quite unique that mine came much later. So in my mid to late 30s, after I'd had my two babies, after I had my second baby, my period didn't come back. And so I went on a bit of a journey to find out why it didn't come back. And I kind of knew, to be honest, at the time why that was, Ola. I was pretty unhappy. We had just moved countries. We had two small kids. I was exhausted. I didn't really have any friends. I was just a bit miserable, to be honest. And I reached out to someone who recommended I go and have an abdominal massage. Sometimes it's known as our Vigo massage or mine abdominal massage or fertility massage. It's that kind of lots of different names are used for it. And what I loved about that massage, I love all massages and all treatments. I'm a bit of a junkie for all that good stuff. But we all know that that's really dependent on what your cash flow is like and where in the world that you live. If you have a practitioner on your doorstep, it has to be convenient. So I had this lovely treatment. It's an hour and a half long, and she taught me about how the cycle works, and it was complete, like mind-blowing, like, oh, how have I got to my late 30s not knowing this? But what you're taught is you have that treatment there on the massage couch, but then you're taught a self-care massage to do at home. So every day I did my self-care massage, took about 5 minutes every day. And lo and behold, my period came back within about a couple of weeks. And obviously, advertising standards, I'm not going to say people's periods miraculously come back after doing the self-care massage after 2 weeks, but it did for me. And for me, it was my body just getting 5 minutes of love every day, made it feel safe to know it could ovulate. And when I started sharing this with girlfriends, sharing that I'd learned that we are cyclical, that we're supposed to be a different person each week of our menstrual cycle, about how this massage can help with digestive issues, with period problems. I started sharing it with girlfriends. It was like a Pandora's box. If it wasn't my friend who I was talking to, one person very close to them, their mother, their sister, their best friend, their work colleague, had some sort of very bad digestive issue with IBS or some sort of reproductive health issue, whether it was a fertility issue, endo, fibroids, had to have an early hysterectomy, all sorts of things were going on. I was like, wow, this is like sort of a silent pandemic. No one is talking about this, and it's just all happening. And so, really, from that moment onwards, I was really passionate about wanting to teach, in particular, young people how our menstrual cycle works, not just about, here's a tampon, this is, use that, or a pad. It's more like how the menstrual cycle affects every part of your personality and all your needs, to both people with periods and people without periods, and how massage and other small things about changing your diet and your sleep and things like that can really, really have such a huge effect. And we should be reaching out for those things before reaching for the pill often.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think when I spoke to you the first time, I said, gosh, I wish I'd met you when I was a teenager because, yeah, I went to an all boys school that changed into a mixed school. And so I was the first year of girls to go through. And so they said, you've got some lockers in the bathroom to put whatever you want in there. And that was it, pretty much. And
Yeah.
it was, and I think, yeah, if we had that knowledge at that age and even
Mm.
before it's even started, not the kind of reactive, oh, it started, what do we do now? Actually,
Yeah.
beforehand, then how different would our relationships be with our cycle, with our emotions, with our everything? I mean, I can't even begin to imagine. So, yeah, it's amazing that you're working with teenagers. And
Yeah.
what is the magic of the cycle? If you could expand a little bit.
I love it. I love it. Just to go back and say that I really feel so passionate about that, about not being reactive. And I even have women now who are mums who are like, when I got my period, I thought I was dying. Like they didn't know that. That's not just our grandmother's generation. That is really, really still present. So we need to be able to give our 8 to 12-year-olds that information before their period comes. But yes, what is the magic of the menstrual cycle? So I suppose I should start saying, what the hell is a menstrual cycle? Because often we are just taught about that red liquid that comes in our undies, and that's the period. And your period lasts somewhere, a healthy period lasts somewhere between 3 to 7 days, and that's at the start of your menstrual cycle. So a menstrual cycle is the start of one period to the start of the next. So the magic, well, I would love to, first of all, give credit to the Alexander and Jani from the Red School, who've termed these, they call them the inner seasons, to describe how we feel different through our menstrual cycle. And they would describe it that when you're on your period, it's a bit like winter. And for us in the kind of people who are in the northern or the extreme southern hemisphere, we know about those sort of seasons rather than around the tropics. But in winter, you kind of want to hibernate. You kind of want to be inward. And that's how we often feel on our period. We just want to shut down the world. We want to be by ourselves. Then the week or so after our period, we call that the springtime. And it kind of feels, the daffodils and the blossoms coming here in the UK, that kind of hopefulness that you have. Like, oh, okay, right. And a lot of people describe that when they are just after their period, they think, oh, I feel like myself again. They just feel like they're renewed. And then we would call the summer of your menstrual cycle, your inner summer, would be around about ovulation. And that really depends. Everyone thinks it's on day 14. It's never really on day 14. It's somewhere in the middle of your cycle. And that for many people is their superwoman moment. They feel that they can get up early, they can stay up late, their to-do list can go in a blink of an eye, and they feel really generous to other people. And we can talk about how these different magical bits and the different strengths and challenges that can come with these different phases. And then we have autumn, will be, say, the week or 10 days before your period. And again, a bit like the autumn that we're in now, it's a little bit more like, oh, you want to hunker down, you want to kind of go inwards as well. And sometimes having that visual, although that language can really, okay, yeah, I can see that now. I can see how my menstrual cycle kind of goes in 4-ish ways. And some seasons feel easier to us than others. And what I would love people to encourage them is to see how we can find good things in every phase of our menstrual cycle. Often, as I said, many people say, oh, I feel like myself again. I only feel like myself for half of my menstrual cycle. I feel like a complete wicked witch for the rest. And I would really just encourage people to see if there's glimmers, there's superpowers in every phase of it. And maybe I can discuss what those superpowers can be and those challenges, because let's be honest, there are challenges, and I'm not going to sugarcoat the whole thing. And maybe later we can talk about ways that when there are some real challenges going on, they're kind of really simple things to help that as well, to give people hope. So going kind of back on those seasons, if you think about winter, so a superpower that we're really given around that time is that it's a time, if we slow down, that we can tap into our intuition most. That's often when the kind of veil between this side and the universe is kind of is less, and often we can feel our intuition a lot stronger. Obviously, probably people are screaming at their podcast right now saying, what the hell are you talking about? Like, my period is awful. I'm like necking ibuprofens. I've just got hot water ball on my tummy as I'm at my desk. I'm having a mare. And so I totally want to acknowledge how challenging the period can be. And again, we can discuss about ways to ease period pain, because it's just not on that women are suffering like this. And this is why I'm so passionate about talking about periods, is that I really feel at the moment women have one of their arms tied behind their backs. They're being held back by not understanding they're cyclical and really suffering with either bad PMS or period pain, which is really restricting their activity and their happiness for half of their cycle. So we talked about the superpowers and the challenges in winter. In spring, often it is the time to make your lists. It's time to plan. It's time to reach out to people. But I'd also want to acknowledge that there can be challenges around that time. For me, the worst phase of my cycle is about day 6, day 7. That is my inner critic is loudest. I have high anxiety often. Many people would think that is a PMS, a week before your period kind of emotion. But for me, it comes then. And that for me is because estrogen is rising at that time. And that's just really stimulating on my nervous system. And when I've shared that, a lot of people are like, oh, thank God, I thought that was just me. I thought I was just like, why am I an anxious bitch out of nowhere? Like, this is supposed to be the good phase. But that can really happen during spring. And then moving into summer, everyone's like, oh, that is the best phase, clearly. But for some people, it isn't. Again, high estrogen can be really stimulating on the nervous system. It can also be that kind of shiny object syndrome. There's like so much stuff you want to do and you just don't know where to put your attention. That can really happen in your spring and summer. So being able to kind of sometimes use your intuition in your winter to sort of be able to hone in what you want to be doing with that cycle, with your summer of that cycle, I should say. But it can be a great time to, you feel very generous to others. You often can have those difficult conversations. It can be a good time to negotiate a pay rise at work because you're quite silver lipped. You're quite funny. You can often like really talk quite easily, quite fluidly. So that's a real superpower for summer. But often the problem is we want to be our summer selves all the time, right? Because that's what the world expects of us. The world expects for people who are, socialized as female, we're supposed to be smiley, we're supposed to be available, we're supposed to be generous to others, and that is our summer self. But just like we wouldn't want it to be summer all year long, and we've had summers like that, haven't we? Extreme summers here in the UK, where we see that everything gets burnt out, where there's water shortages, where all the trees are dying and all the leaves and grass is looking burnt. That's the same thing that happens to us if we try and be our summer self all cycle long. So we need to capitalize on that summer, but we also can't let our summer selves book the rest of our social calendar, because often we're like, I am so chatty and social. I know I'll call up Ola and see if she's up for a coffee in about 2 weeks' time, because obviously we're in the UK and you can never do anything spontaneous. It always has to be in about 2 weeks' time. But holy shit, like 2 weeks' time is your period, right? And you don't want to go anywhere then. So that is just, and frankly, even though I'm cycle aware now for the last, 10 years, I'm still making that mistake because our society doesn't celebrate that we are supposed to be these different versions of ourselves. So be gentle with yourself. We'll always make that mistake. And it's all about, having positive talk in our head. I think going into the superpowers for autumn, and the challenges, the superpower would really be that often it's take no shit time. Like you become really laser focused on what you want to achieve. It's a really good time to do a tax return, clear out a cupboard. It could be a good time to continue that negotiations if it's not, for your new salary increase, because you're not gonna mess around. I know exactly what I want, and this is what I need to get. I have a client who has PMDD, and she's based in India. Now, PMDD is the initial stand for premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Some people call it PMS's bigger, badder, bitchier sister, but it's a lot worse than that. It really can be dark, intrusive thoughts and mood changes that happen straight after ovulation. It's not about not having the right hormones. It's more about your brain not responding to them or kind of listening to them as well. We can discuss ways to support them, people, but PMDD can be very dark and very difficult. Two things she brought up was that how she uses it for a superpower now is it's a time, and I've heard this from other artists, that they get their great poetry done, that they can really put on their kind of dark side for either art, for drawing or writing songs or doing poetry. And for my client who lives in India, she's like, that is my take no shit. I go to the bank. So I used to live in India, like the banking system can be a little bit awkward and like a bit bureaucratic and things. And she's like, I go and I'm no one's going to mess with me on my PMDD phase. So I just love that we can use even what we think is a dark thing, we can use it to an advantage. But I really want to acknowledge there is real challenges in this phase, in this week or 10 days before our period. We are really not, some people are, including myself, very noise sensitive. And this is such an interesting thing because it's actually one of our, just in case we're pregnant, our body is more hypersensitive to noise because it's kind of just looking out, just on high alert. Is there anything bad going to come and get me, basically, because I could possibly be pregnant. Your digestion slows because progesterone slows your digestion so you can extract more nutrients from your food. That can make you feel very full and gross. Well, everyone knows how they feel if they haven't done a poo. It just doesn't feel good, so they have that sluggish feel. Because estrogen at the first start of our cycle, really in our spring and summer, that helps us regulate our blood sugar better. We have less estrogen. That makes us hungry a lot easier. Again, we can talk about ways to help yourself through that phase when that's happening. So there are lots of challenges in that autumn phase. And if we can even just split our cycle in two, a lot of people love or like themselves in that spring and summer phase, and we can kind of call that the yes phase because estrogen dominance, and we joke that estrogen's the yes hormone. She's like smiley, wants to do things, really up for stuff. And then progesterone dominates in the autumn, and then there's no real hormones in our winter. But we can call those two phases the no phase. This is where we want more time to ourselves. We don't want to hang out with people. We really see, we say that estrogen is like glosses over life, and like almost like the veil has been lifted, and we see like, oh, it's like 3 a.m. in a nightclub where suddenly you're like, oh God, where am I? Oh no, you're not good looking at all. Jesus, like just the real, you just see the world for what it is that week before your period and on your period. And I totally understand why people prefer themselves in that yes phase of spring and summer, but we can't just like ourselves half the time. We have to learn to like ourselves the whole bit of our cycle. And so trying to find those superpowers, trying to understand where there is strength in each of those phases. There are challenges too, but there are strengths that we have, and learn to like ourselves. And also just to understand that we're not supposed to be available all the time. We are supposed to be a different person each week of our menstrual cycle. Be kind to ourselves, and perhaps we can start our thing with our girlfriends, with the people in our home, to say, when you say hello to them, you can say, hi, how are you? Like, I'm great, I'm in my summer. How are you? I'm okay, but I'm in my winter, so can you pipe down, love? You know what I mean? We can just have that direct language to share with each other, so that, of course we have to operate every day and week of our menstrual cycle in the world that's out there, that's not made for women's biology. But we can be so much kinder to ourselves. And if we have that language to communicate it with others, it can often make other people feel informed, and that they can give you compassion and grace as well.
Well, thank you. I'm sure people might have taken notes or something along that, because I think that was the biggest thing for me, of recognizing the different seasons, and then also noticing, actually, oh, okay, this is my transition between one and the other, and not beating myself up, especially from going summer to autumn, kind of autumn to winter, and almost being like, no, not yet, I've still got things to do. Like, so that was a very, and I know I still do it, and sometimes I like to give myself a little bit more time in my winter, but sometimes you actually just can't give yourself that time, and so it's kind of allowing yourself to adapt to that and think, okay, if I've got to do this, then how can I support myself in other ways at the same time? But I think you just touched on it at the end as well. And once we've got this knowledge, we can share it with the people closest to us. And I know a friend of mine, she has 3 boys, and so male dominated house, but on their fridge she's got her wheel seasons, and they know where she's at.
Awesome.
And I just thought, also for the boys to grow up with that, because it's 50% of the world, or maybe 51, or I never know the stats, but it's whether you're in relationship with someone who has it, or you've definitely been born to somewhat to someone who has it, sisters, friends, colleagues. It's just having that awareness and that knowledge, I think, is so beneficial, just not just to the people experiencing it, but to the people who interact with us on a day-to-day basis as well.
Oh, totally. And I think that's the thing. I love that your friend does that. And in fact, I do these period ready workshops for 8 to 12-year-olds, and that's one of the tasks we do, is that we make a emotional wheel. Obviously they haven't started their period, so we just pick 4 emotions, like happy, sad, like whatever, and or frustrated. And so we can share that, so that can go on their bedroom door, and so they can share with their family how they're feeling, because often it's just like, and that feeling, like when you're PMSy or whatever, you don't want to like go into one about what's happening and why you feel that way. You just be like, just look on the door. That's all you need to do, just look at the door. And I find it, again, I go into schools to teach period education, and I've gone to many co-ed schools where they only want me to teach the girls about being cyclical and all that's period education. And it's like, oh, I get it that the boys aren't going to have a period, but even if they're gay, they are going to have females in their life. It doesn't mean that they don't have a partner that doesn't have a period. Every man has someone in their life, whether their sister, their mother, their colleague, they've got someone, or their partner, who is having a cycle. So we all need to know this. It just has to be universal language.
Absolutely. So hopefully the men did not see this title and switch off. I'm going to try and right. I'm not quite sure what the title is yet, but also in the description, kind of like, men, listen.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it. Love it.
But I think, also what you touched on upon of that winter cycle, especially in the society that we live in. If you live in the West, it's very much that you're on 24/7. And I first remember seeing that graph of, you know, a man's hormones, and it's a
Mm.
24-hour cycle, and then a woman's hormones, and I was like, and it just seeing that image
Mm.
shifted so much for me, and it just
Yeah.
really woke me up, and just, oh my goodness, I have been trying my whole life to keep up with that 24-hour cycle. I didn't understand why I couldn't wake up at exactly the same time every morning, go on exactly the same run or cycle or whatever, and want to eat the same thing every morning. Like it was so variant, and that just, it blew my mind at that time. And I'm still, yeah, as you said, it's even after 10 years of yourself working with it, you're still learning about it. And I think, yeah, it's not being hard, it's exactly what you said, it's not being hard on ourselves with it all. And but I think, yeah, in the society that we live in, it is harder to be
Mm.
kinder to ourselves because there is that additional pressure.
Totally.
But
And I think this, I love what you said, that it's it really is dropping the shame over it. And when you see you know, men's testosterone levels peak around 5 a.m. in the morning, and then they kind of and then they peter out during the day, and then they reset the next 5 a.m. in the morning, and their energy really goes with the sunrise and the sunset. And so they can be the same person every day because their hormones allow that. Now our energy is more with the moon, so 29-ish day cycle. So we can get the same amount of stuff done, but over a 29-day distance rather than a 24-hour cycle. And I think just knowing that, it's like, you know, I am not crazy. I'm not broken. I am cyclical. That's okay. And I would love to, if it's okay, touch on the couple of points you brought up about sleep and also about hunger, because I think they're two really fundamental things that we judge ourselves on. And so, as you quite rightly said, you know, we often need more sleep during different parts of our cycle. I mentioned the superwoman moment during our summer. You know, you can get up early, you can stay up late, and you could have gone to the gym and could have done everything and still wake up with boundless amounts of energy. Whereas before our period and with our progesterone levels, progesterone will make you, it's the great sedator, we call it. It makes you want to take a sneaky nap. It wants you to press snooze. It makes you want to go to bed a bit earlier. And if we know that, again, sometimes we can't do that. We've got to go to a work function. We've already got a party planned, whatever it is. Go enjoy yourself. We're not telling you to stop life, but just to be kinder to yourself inside. You know, I call it shit FM inside. Just dial down shit FM so that you have this nicer dialogue that's going on with what your sleep needs are. You are supposed to sleep more the week before your period. That is just how it is. And if you allow yourself that, will that make your period a little bit less painful? Will that give yourself a little bit more capacity to not be such a short-tempered bitch? Possibly, you know, all those things. And moving on to kind of food, I really think this is really passionate about discussing how we are supposed to eat more the week before the second half of our menstrual cycle. Our body is creating a whole new organ every single cycle with that lining of our womb. And so if it was, so that's an internal organ, so we can't see it, we can't like judge it for ourselves or to other people. But if it was like the way I teach kids, if it was like a third arm that grew out, and then if you met a girlfriend or whatever and you saw that their third arm was at elbow, you'd be elbow length, you'd be like, oh, you must be starving. You'd be like, yes, I am starving. Look, I'm like growing something here. People would acknowledge it. And that is how it is with our menstrual cycle. That to the after ovulation is about, you've got 2 weeks ish till your period, and those 2 weeks you should not be in any way calorie restricting, because your body thinks, holy cow, there's a famine, hang on to everything you've got, and make sure this woman like wants as much sugar and carbs as possible. And to help you with that, you really should be focusing on protein as your breakfast. Well, that should be throughout your cycle, but in particular those couple of week to 10 days before your period. You are going to be more hungry. You're going to have to eat more food, and also really concentrate on protein and healthy fats. And when I say healthy fats, that can be olive oil, butter, the it's called smash, the oily fish, that's salmon, mackerel, anchovy, sardines and herring. Is that? I hope I got that right. And so if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Nuts and seeds, avocado, and I think I said olive oil already. All of those things help us make our hormones, help us feel full for longer. Really, really important to have that, but also to acknowledge you're going to want to eat more. But if you want to eat less of the junk and more good stuff, really focusing on protein, healthy fats the week before your period will really help you feel fuller for longer. And I'm never going to advocate about weight loss. That's something I feel very passionate against. But we absolutely should not be in any way trying to diet the 2 weeks before our period. Our body will not, you'll be really moody, your sleep will be bad, the wheels will fall off, and you won't lose any weight either, because your body is building and growing this whole new organ.
When you put it like that, it's growing a whole new organ. I've never heard someone say it like that. I was like, oh yeah. And
It's busy. It's busy
yeah,
doing something.
just slightly. And I remember in May, I walked into a shop and I hadn't eaten, I think it was sardines. I'd never eaten sardines in my life. And I walked into the shop and I was like, I need them.
Huh?
I was like, I went in and clearly it was that time before. And I was just like, move away. Where are they? And literally just, I've never told anyone this. And went into the car and just sat and ate them in the car. And obviously with the windows open because the smell was quite something.
Stinky.
But it
Yeah.
was just this absolute urge. And I think I'm a huge advocate of following that intuition, and it's like the same with intuitive eating. And it's what my body, I wasn't questioning it. I was like, right, that's what it is. That's what it needs. I mean, I questioned it afterwards, like that was curious, but it was actually just listen. And, yeah, maybe if it's saying pizzas and or the banana bread and everything, then, allow yourself that as well, but also just being
Totally. And
aware of that.
enjoy is what I say.
Absolutely.
You just eat it slowly, whatever you're doing. Like
Mm.
often when we are like the week before our period and we're just really hungry, like, "Jeez, I just want like a Twix and a packet of hula hoops." We'll have it, but we'll have it in quite a shameful way where we're kind of like eating it quite fast and like quite violently. Whereas you
Yeah.
just sit, look at it, smell it, just enjoy it, and just it,
Get the pleasure from it.
yeah.
There's so much pleasure to food. Oh, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother but actually going back to what you were saying about, that time when we can be more intuitive when we're on our period. And I actually have struggled with that time a lot. And that's been the part of, not in terms of pain, I've been very lucky in that way, apart from when I had the coil, that was pain on another level. But I always struggle with that because I think there is this pressure that I put on myself if I need to get going, like, okay, when is this going to be over? And actually just taking the time to just slow down, lie down, like listen to my womb. What is my womb trying to tell me? And for me, I always tell my clients that, every month, how amazing we have a few days where we are really releasing something. Imagine that everything that you've kind of been built up over that month, we can release it like really physically, really physically. But if someone is really struggling with the pain, maybe they can't go into work because of it, there's also that shame attached to that as well, because if people start clocking, oh, it's that time of the month for her. How, you mentioned earlier that you can mention some things of how do you navigate that, what are some little things that could improve that
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, totally. So I'll talk about things we can do throughout the cycle in advance of like your period coming as well. But I want to acknowledge, like, when it's in the moment, it's awful to be going through that, absolutely awful. And there are things we can do with having more like anti-inflammatory foods can be helpful at the time, using magnesium balm. Many people like these BU patches, they can be helpful as well. So like an in the moment kind of support for yourself, hot water bottle, the massage that I teach can also be helpful. But throughout your cycle, things to be thinking of, or actually on your period, one thing that has been a real surprise to me is changing your menstrual product, changing your period products. So from plastic disposable ones like Always or Tampax. When I say plastic, what I mean is they're disposable, and unfortunately, some of the products which are either in tampons that are going inside you or the disposable products which are next to your vulva, they actually have plastics in, or fragrances or dyes. And unfortunately, they can be really disruptive to our vulva health and can affect period pain. And I've had so many, again, there is no double blind study on this, but I've had so much feedback that when a client has changed their period products, they have reduced their period pain. So I always want to put that out there. I'm not going to say it's going to definitely do. And the brands I absolutely love, should you want to explore reusable products, there's a lovely period pant brand called Nixie, Nixi, and they do lovely period pants. And there's a lovely brand called Wear Out, and they have lovely period washable period pads. But I get it, not everyone wants to use washable stuff. I totally understand that. And so I would be looking for organic non-toxic ones, and frankly they come with a price point, which really irritates me because I find it really annoying that we have to pay more to not get poisoned. But that is, if you are suffering with your period, then I would be looking to make some changes in that, either wearing the washable ones at home, at the weekend, in overnight, and then using disposable ones during the day. Just mix it up, just see if that's something to think about. Another thing to think about is, unfortunately, I would say all the fun stuff, but alcohol, sugar, and dairy are real triggers for period pain. And out of those three, in particular dairy, I had a client who had endo and fibroids, had I think something like 3 or 4 laparoscopies, so had 3 or 4 keyhole surgery to have the endo removed or fibroids removed, was looking to have a hysterectomy done, took out dairy for just 2 weeks of a menstrual cycle from ovulation to period, and her period pain went from a 10 out of 10 where she couldn't function to about a 3 out of 10. And she was like, holy cow, no one told me this after all the operations and the general anesthetics I just had, and I could just avoid dairy. She even had it for the first 2 weeks of her cycle. It was just from ovulation to her period. So dairy in particular, there's a real link with that, and sugar and alcohol. Again, they're just very inflammatory things I would looking for. If you can afford it, I would probably, depending on how long you've had it, I would also consider going to see a pelvic health specialist, a women's health physio, just to see if there's any alignment issues. Again, I've seen clients who had no period problems, then they had a ski accident or fell on a slippery floor or something happened, and then they damaged their pelvis, and then subsequently they had period pain problems. So that is something I would definitely explore. And with period pain, it's often not just one thing that gets rid of your period pain. It's often a few different bits of a jigsaw that can be helpful. And there's another kind of like smorgasbord full of stuff that I could suggest. I usually say to clients, like, let's try 3 of these things, and then let's speak in a month's time and see how you're getting on, because it's too overwhelming to try and do everything at once, as we all know with our health journeys. And I teach this lovely fertility massage, the massage that I first had many moons ago when my period had gone AWOL. And doing that massage can be helpful. Obviously, I teach that to people, but it's not rocket science. You just start massaging your tummy. We often know that ourselves. We have those expressions. I'm sick to my stomach with worry. I've got butterflies in my stomach. We held so much emotion in this part of our body. And we naturally often just start rubbing it when we're feeling nervous or whatever that is. Just take a bit of hand cream and start rubbing your belly in a clockwise direction before bed. See how that feels to you. That might feel nourishing. Yeah, there's lots more I can suggest, but that's hopefully you'll get it going.
I've never heard about the dairy one.
Oh,
That
okay,
is mental. Wow. And again,
totally.
just little things like that,
Yeah.
just being aware of it before your period starts. And as soon as it starts, you're aware of it. And then you go in, you're like, right, okay, now it's the time to cut out the dairy or whatever. I mean, it's so empowering as well.
Totally. And I don't want anything to be evil. Like, I love
Mm.
cake and I have the odd glass of
Mm.
wine, and I love butter. So like, it's not, we need to add things in as well. But if you're in terrible pain with your period pain, I would say let's try this, and just for half of your cycle, just see how we get on, or just cut it down. Let's not stop it entirely. How about we don't have as many smoothies, or we don't have as much cheese? Just take it a little bit step back, so we can just make this really doable and really achievable.
Absolutely. And yeah, even the natural or the organic non-toxic products as well. I've gone through, because I was on the pill since I was 17, I think, for probably 7, 8, 9 years. So I didn't even know what a regular period looked like. And I mean, that was a great moment of empowerment when I kind of said, okay, enough. I actually want to know what this looks like, and am I in pain? And that's a whole it's a Pandora's box once you start opening it. And of course it brings up different things, but yeah, when I've tried so many different products and a menstrual cup, and I've did that for quite a few years, and now it doesn't feel right anymore. And there's just so many different things, but it's also finding what works for you. And yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to actually, as you were saying about the period pants, I'm going to try and email them and see if they could give a discount code for this
Okay,
episode or
great.
something.
Yes.
Because yeah, there is a price point to it,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And I don't know, even if you go to a bar or something, they have some products in the restaurant or in the restroom, sorry. It's great, but yes, they are probably the ones that are the cheapest. And what would you wish you'd known previously to all of this that could have really change your relationship with it, or what do you wish you'd known now that
Mm.
you know now?
Yeah, well, it would definitely be that we are cyclical, that
Mm.
our mood, energy, motivation, ability to socialize, sleep needs, what we want to eat is all determined with which week of our menstrual cycle we're in. I'd love to know that. But I also would love everyone to know, and wish I'd known this, is that the really simple things can make a massive impact. So we've talked about period pain, and maybe I can talk a little bit about PMS and kind of just those, because although I help people with lots of different period pains, period issues, including period pain, PMS is something we don't really talk about as much, publicly anyway. And I have loads of clients who have lots of rage and PMS, PMDD, like where that week before is like they want to burn their life, and they don't, and they're really struggling with that, and they don't want it to be like that anymore. But similar to the period pain, there are really simple things you can do. And so to kind of give an overview of how our complex endocrine system works, really simply really down, if we think of it like in a pyramid, at the top is cortisol and insulin. So, cortisol is our stress hormone, insulin is our hormone for blood sugar regulation. And then they basically, where they're at, predicts how we make the next level down, which is pregnenolone and DHEA. We call these the parent hormones because they go on to meet the bottom layer, which is our sex hormones. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, as well as melatonin and thyroid. So when we're stressed, we're not sleeping well, when we're eating just junk, that cascades down to how our sex hormones are made. And so when I work with people, I say, look, just for 3 months, let's work on that top level, our cortisol and insulin levels, see how they are, and see if that's going to help things. There are other things that can be causing your period pains and your PMS, or whatever the hormonal issue, if it's your skin. But making sure that we're dealing with the foundations, the top of the pyramid to start off with, is really important. And then I talk about the foundations and those three things. And again, I wish I'd been told that these are the three things I should be looking for to at least start off with: is your sleep, pooing, and your nervous system, basically, like joy and calming your nervous system. So sleep, we really should be getting like 8 hours good quality sleep. Our phone should be in a completely different room. We should have an alarm clock for the mornings. Phone should not be near us, for like ideally 2 hours before bed, and ideally not for the first hour of the day. Or when I say phones, I mean any kind of screens. We need to have deep restorative sleep to make the hormones that are going to make us a happy and balanced person. If there is any health challenges, if there are any hormonal issues, sleep is the first place I'm going to start with someone. I'm going to try and improve their sleep. Then the next one will be pooing. How often are you pooing, and how well are you pooing? You should be pooing every day. And the poo that comes out, I'm really comfortable talking about this, I hope everyone else is it should come out like it's like toothpaste that's been squeezed out. It should be one big formed unit. It shouldn't be like Maltesers. It shouldn't be like running diarrhea. It should be one movement. I think it's the Bristol stool chart, as you want to say. I think it's grade 4. And so to enable us to poo every day, we need to be having, ideally, I don't do this for every meal, but ideally 50% of our plate should be vegetables. When we look down at that circle, or that of that plate or the bowl, it should be 50%, should be that much veggies for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Again, I like to think I'm quite relatable. I don't usually match that every single meal, but we should be having that much fiber to look after our bowels, drinking water, and also that massage can help with digestive issues as well. If you do not poo regularly every day, that is going to greatly impact your period pain, because you need to be, basically, when your hormones have done their stuff in your body, they are sent to your liver to be deactivated and then sent to your bowel to be pooped out. If for any reason your liver is overloaded or your bowels aren't working, those hormones get reactivated again. And so that means you have higher levels of, say, estrogen in relation to progesterone. And again, it's not that one is good or bad compared to the other. They're both brilliant, but we just need them to be in equal amounts, or in well-balanced amounts. And so not pooing can really affect period pain, really affect PMS. And the third foundation, I would say, is kind of joy. We need to do something every day that makes us smile, and we need to do something every day that calms our nervous system. Being a grown-up is really hard, and we often lose that fun and joy and spontaneity because of all those boring grown-up responsibilities. But also, we rarely do something that can calm our nervous system. And the thing I teach the teenagers I look after, or not look after, I work with, is just when you come home from school or your job or whatever it is, to lie down on your bed with no phone, just have a relaxing music played for 5 minutes. Find a song, find a relaxing classical song or whatever, like is a nice, relaxing, calming song for you that's 5 minutes long. Press play, close your eyes, and that'll just take you away for 5 minutes. I do that before meetings sometimes. Didn't do it before this podcast recording, but sometimes when I just need to do something to reset myself, I'll take 5 minutes, listen to that song, close my eyes, take some nice deep breaths. That is so important to do that to calm our nervous system. It could be taking a walk outside, it could be journaling, it could be having 5 minutes daydreaming on the bus. There's different ways that can work for different people. I'm not going to say it has to be yoga, I'm not going to say it has to be meditation, but we need to do something that calms our nervous system every day. It's just absolutely given. So sleep, pooing, and calming your nervous system and having some joy, they're the foundations to help with your hormones and your overall health. And I wish I'd known that sooner. It's great to do supplements, it's great to do all these great things, but if we don't have those foundations, we're not going to move the dial on anything.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I would have loved to know, that it wasn't this complicated thing, because I think at the beginning you're like, yeah, I remember being taught about it in school very briefly, and all they talked about was the hormones, and it was all the LSH, all of these different things, and that overwhelmed me and confused me. And I went, how that doesn't relate to me at all. I don't understand how my body responds to that. And it's like, this rises, this means this in your body, XYZ, you're ovulating and whatever. But yeah, it was so overwhelming at the time. So actually the way that you've just succinctly done that and breaking it down into those seasons, and then yeah, looking at the basics, I mean, those foundations are for everything. And it's having that safety. And I was also reading a book all about kind of managing your fertility and really understanding ovulation time. And exactly as you said, it doesn't happen bang on day 14 every single time, and how stress is impacting it and how it can be postponed. And I think there's kind of that fear of, this is too much, I don't understand this, so I'm not even going to address it. So hopefully people who have listened to this are like, it's actually not that complicated. And when you actually start listening, and I have an app now, but before I was writing down kind of like how I felt. And I haven't found the ideal app yet, because I think it's quite they do like to box you in, like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, well, actually I've done something completely different, and I don't really want to write a whole note about it. And so maybe there's something in that.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to talk about that actually, because that often people say, oh, this is great information, but like, what next? And really on that note of like how you can apply this into your life. So I always say there's like 3 ways to, well, there's no doubt more than 3 ways, but 3 ways I share about how to track your cycle. And track your cycle literally means like saying, okay, what day of the cycle am I and how am I feeling? Just like you had said, Paula. And so the first way I always say is like in your head. Like you could just be like, I am really on fire today. I'm really funny. Like, what day of the cycle am? Oh God, yeah, I'm around about, day 15. Clearly I'm like Superwoman. I'm in my summer. So that's the way, or like, I'm so irritated by that person smacking their lips in the bus. Like, where am I? Oh yeah, I'm just about to get my period. So we can just start it like that. We can just be in our heads and just think that. I am really geeky and I like doing it in a really boring way, which is like with an A4 pad. I write it. So I have an A4 lined pad, those of you listening, and then I put the day 1 in the column, and then I write 1 sentence on how I'm feeling. And the reason I like this is because then I can get the different pages and put them next to each other and see a pattern. I'm like, oh, okay, so I had, day 6 is a real challenge, or day 5, day 7. And that helped me identify my challenging phase so that I could be so much more compassionate to myself during that time. I like that way. Some people have pretty journals as well, which is also lovely. But I have, like you have mentioned, apps are overwhelming the way that people track their cycles, but they're not always perfect. The 2 that I really like are a brand called Clue, and now it's either Read Your Body or Read My Body. I think it's Read Your Body. And they are really explicit that they don't sell your data, because unfortunately, unless apps are really explicit about that, most apps sell your data. There's really intimate information about yourself to people to sell things to you, which I think is fairly bad. So that's one downside of apps. So I'd be really clear about that. Either get the better apps, or just be comfortable with the fact that your stuff is, your info gets sold. Secondly, most apps, like you said, they don't let you celebrate your wins. They don't let you celebrate your superpowers. They often focus on headaches, sore boobs, irritable, those things on the more negative side. And many apps are for different reasons. Some are to get pregnant and some are to avoid pregnancy.
Mm.
Whereas many people just want to track it just to see how they're feeling, just to help them plan their lives. So that's the kind of downside to apps that I would say, but they are overwhelmingly the most common way that people track their cycle. And some
Mm.
people choose apps. I'm not too sure. I think Clue and Read Your Body, I think you can share it. You can share it with your partner as well, which can
Yeah.
be helpful if, again, you're trying to conceive. You can see where the fertility window might be, but also just to share, this is where I'm at, which I think is a nice
Mm.
thing to do as well.
Absolutely. And actually, you reminded me that I used to have a spreadsheet. And
Oh,
so I
really?
could see it next to each other.
Oh my God.
And it's
Well done.
exactly that. And I think because I've been traveling around a lot the last
Yes.
kind of 6, 8 months, it's easier to have it on my phone. But as you said that, I said, yes, as soon as I get kind of a base, it is right, it's all going on the wall. But it
I
is
love it.
amazing to be able to look back, I think, because
Mm.
it's not just looking at that one cycle, it's looking at, okay, that's mirrored throughout it all. And maybe this is what you do with your clients, but rather than just looking at one cycle, you don't know what's going on in your life until it happens, and then looking back, you can it's all in hindsight, the beauty of it.
Hindsight is 2020. And I think a couple of points on that is that if you are going to make a big decision, whether it's to move country,
Mm.
dump your partner, move house, change jobs, whatever it is, I would always say just wait one menstrual cycle and see how you feel, because you're going to see it from 4 different angles as a result. And it might be, again, you're not tracking your cycle, or people don't have a cycle at the moment, they can do it with the moon, from one full moon to the next.
Mm.
How do you feel about that thought? How do you think about that? And also, what shows up in your menstrual cycle, we call our period and our menstrual cycle our monthly report card. It shows what's been going on, with our cortisol, insulin, and everything in our life. And so I remember if people dare look back to March 2020 when the lockdown happened, I had many clients, their period was fine in March, fine in April, fine in May, and fine in June. But holy cow, July and August were complete humdingers. And it often is that it's a cumulative effect. Either on stress, or actually it can take about 3 months for a stress event to appear in your cycle as well. Or maybe when you've had jet lag or you've traveled, there can be either things that can show up straight away in the cycle, or it can actually be in a few cycles ahead. So just again, have that lots of grace and patience with yourself, because often we're like, what? Why is the period late? Or why is this happening? It's like, oh, okay, can you look back? Can you have a little bit more of a in the moment and just zoom out and think, oh, okay, yeah, 3 months ago was a humdinger. 3 months ago, I got a really bad flu, or whatever happened. So that can really show up a little bit later.
Wow, I hadn't really thought about the cumulative effect of it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I'm really excited actually by this conversation, and I think quickly about the apps. I also saw that unfortunately the state of the abortion rules and laws in the States means that if you are using those apps, you absolutely have to be 100% careful, because they will be selling it. You don't know who they're selling it to. So I would just put a little disclaimer in that as well. And I think it's also nice just to have it something physical as well, to have it written down and think, oh, okay, yes, this is me, and
Yeah.
it's not an app telling me whatever.
Yeah.
But
There's something very revelatory by putting pen to paper. There's something very powerful
absolutely.
about that act, of recording how you're feeling, and it's amazing what comes out. So yeah,
Mm,
encourage
yeah,
people just to experiment, give it a go for a month and
absolutely.
see how it feels.
Yeah. No, I think this conversation has been so empowering. Yeah, it's quite simple. Yes, there are complications to it, but that's life. It's not, but it's those three foundations: that sleep, calming the nervous system, and what you're eating. I think that was right.
And
Those three.
pooing, yeah,
Pooing,
pooing.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. Other
it's,
end.
it's nicer the way you put it though.
And so if people want to get in touch with you, or have daughters who
Mhm.
potentially haven't started or are starting, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Ola. So my Instagram handle is _ Tara Ghosh _ and my website's taraghosh.com. I'm really passionate about helping the next generation. So I run period ready workshops for 8 to 12-year-olds. So I can either do that one-on-one with people online if they just want their daughter to just have it them, such as the three of us, the mum and daughter together, and then me. So I can do that for people all around the world. For people who are based near London or Southwest London, I do in-person events where we get about 6 kids together. Usually it's a little friendship group, and then I do a session for the mums online where I teach them all about puberty, perimenopause. I teach them the massage so they can teach it to their daughters, and then I have the afternoon session with the girls, which is just so much fun, I can't tell you. And then again, I work one-to-one with teenage girls all around the world to help them, and we do like a 3-month clinic where I do a long session with them, help them brainstorm and find ideas to help support whatever issue there's going on, whether it's the acne, period pain, or PMS. And then we meet again for the next 3 months. And I also teach the beautiful abdominal massage to people. And I love working with women in their 30s and 40s as well to help them understand their bodies. But really, I'm focusing more on the younger generation, because everyone I meet who's in their 30s and 40s says, I wish I knew this sooner, just like I did. So I'm really passionate about changing that. And I also go into schools and teach at schools as well.
And if you were a mum listening to this and your daughter maybe is just, you kind of think, okay, this is the age that she might be starting, what is one thing that, you know, you could say to the mums to say to the daughters? What would it be?
Oh, I love that. I think the thing I would encourage is just for them to be talking and about their own period experience, in the sense that, you know, just to clock in how they feel cyclically, like, you know, I'm really irritated, I don't want to be a mom today. Obviously, maybe not say that out loud, but, you know, that kind of sharing where you're at is something lovely that can be, it's a great way of mirroring to your children what you would like them to be able to understand about their cycle as well. And I would just say there's so many nice things you can do. I have a handout through my Instagram link tree about ways to help your daughter feel more prepared. You can prepare like a little period kit together where you go and get like a little waterproof zip bag and you put in it pair of pants, some wet wipes, a pad, maybe a little sweetie, or I did like a little roll on essential oil, something nice, and they can just feel really confident that they've got that in their school bag or their overnight bag if they go on any trips or go and stay at a friend's. There's some lovely books that they could get. Again, it's in this handout which says, so you can, again, you can talk it with them, and just even doing those things means that they know that you're the person they can come to when they've got a question, that they feel confident in their mum. And maybe often as well, one little tip I'd say is if they ask you a question you don't know the answer to, just say, I don't know, but you know what, I'm going to go and ask Tara that, or I'm going to go and find the answer to that and come back to you. Often what we do is we panic and we start mumbling and just like, blah, blah, and we just start talking and talking and talking, even though we really don't know what we're talking about, and we're a bit like awkward because we feel so awkward. And there should be no shame over this. No one has modeled this to us. No one has shown how to have these period conversations with the next generation. And I think talking less is better because it just shows that you're quite confident. Because if you start babbling on, often they think, oh God, mum's really embarrassed by that. Ask her again. Good Lord, I don't want to make her feel awkward. So I would say less, but look confident so that they know that they can come back to you about it. And then you can say, look, I don't really know how to describe that. No one ever described it to me. Let me think about that and I'll come back to you. You know, they don't need an answer right there and then if you don't know the answer to the words. Yeah.
So yeah, open communication, I think, and this conversation has been exactly that as well. So I'm very, very, very grateful, and yeah, I'm sure I will be in touch.
Well, it's been lovely chatting. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for coming on.